contrary to what you might think, by merely having an analytics account, it's not going to have created those goals for you. You do need to manually set that up. Welcome back to the Talking Web Marketing podcast with myself, Ilana Wexler. This is a show where we reveal the best tips, tricks, and tactics to increasing your website traffic and then converting that traffic into leads and sales. We also discuss what's working right now in the ever-changing world of web marketing so you can apply it to your business. Welcome to today's episode on Talking Web Marketing. Today, we're going to be talking about Google Analytics and specifically how you can use Google Analytics to develop some really important and valuable business insights into your business. So let's get started. So firstly, why would you want to use Google Analytics to develop business insights? And really, it comes down to you determining and almost quantifying if people are doing what you want them to do. I mean, that's the whole point of it, really, isn't it? Getting people to your website and getting them to do what you want them to do. And Google Analytics will help you determine how effective it is and if it's effective at all. So it's really, really important. Now, most of you probably don't realize, but before I sort of entered into the world of web marketing and specifically pay-per-click marketing, I actually used to work as a data analyst. So you can imagine my delight when I logged into Google Analytics the first time. It's sort of a recovering data analyst's dream, to be honest. But as much as I love data, too much data can also be really quite overwhelming and quite confusing. So it's important to kind of go into Google Analytics with a view of just almost cherry picking the important bits of information that are relevant to you, because I certainly don't use every aspect of Google Analytics. And there's a lot of stuff which I find largely irrelevant. So it's really about going in a very strategic way to determine what's the most important information for you and your business and how you can develop insights. So it does involve you being a little bit of a detective, actually, where you're trying to build a story around this data, because there is a story in there. You just kind of need to be the detective to get the elements and put the pieces together of the puzzle. And I also kind of take the 80-20 approach when it comes to analytics. I'm very much a big fan of the Pareto principle, which is the concept of 80-20, be it 80% of your results are really driven by often 20% of your marketing efforts, and et cetera, et cetera. So you're really looking for those small hinges that move the really big doors, because they're there. You just need to determine where specifically they are. So what are some business questions you might be wondering, you might sort of have in the back of your head if you've got a bricks and mortar business or an online business and you're wondering certain kinds of questions. And so one of the main questions people wonder is, where are my leads actually coming from? And leads being obviously people who call you or submit an online form, etc. And when I say where, I mean, what traffic sources are generating that, as well as the location of your leads. So Google Analytics will help you answer that first question. And the next question you might be wondering is if your marketing is actually working. The classic quote that was said, I'm not sure who it was stated by, but the quote is, half the money I spend on advertising is wasted. The trouble is I don't know which half. Well, hopefully Google Analytics will answer that question for you. You'll be able to determine which channel is working, and equally important, which channel is not working. So you can stop doing what's not working and put that money towards what is working, and sort of a reallocation of budget. So analytics will help you determine that. The next thing that analytics will also help you determine is how effective your website is at doing its job of converting people. And I like to use the analogy of water in a bucket, and the bucket being your website and the water being traffic. Now, every bucket is going to have holes in them, which is sort of what's called leakage points, people leaving your website and then not doing what you want them to do. But what analytics will help you do is identify where those holes are in your bucket. And hopefully there are some really obvious ones that you can plug up. Now, I'm not suggesting you're going to have a website which has no holes in their bucket. That's somewhat impossible. But perhaps you can really plug up some big holes that are unnecessary, and Google Analytics will help you identify what those holes are in your bucket. You'll also be able to determine if social media is actually working in your business. It's such a pain point for many businesses. It's so time consuming. People's staff spend a lot of time, for example, touching up photos on Instagram, etc. And analytics will help you determine if it's actually driving any sales at the bottom line. And yes, it's not all about sales. I'm the first to admit that. There is an element of brand awareness and sort of social proof, which there is merit in spending time on social media. But if you do actually want to determine if it is generating you sales, then analytics will help you actually quantify that. Because as I said, it's really all about trying to do more of what is working and less of what is not working. So the first thing you need to do is you need to determine what specifically you want to track within Google Analytics. And to be honest, I've been, teaching Google Analytics actually for quite a while now. And I often find this is the struggle that gets a lot of people. They struggle to stand back and really identify what are the big things that they're trying to track and what's important to them. And once you identify what's important to you, then actually the implementation part of it is actually not that hard. So classic kind of things that you might want to track would be somebody filling in a contact form, or obviously revenue generated. But there's other kind of things that you can track, which is sort of phone calls, as well as possibly somebody signing up to your newsletter, etc., etc. So I suggest you do more than one kind of tracking, because it's not all about sales and it's not all about leads. Obviously, they're a big part, but there are other kind of metrics that you can set up to track, which those people will ultimately lead to being a customer at some point. And once you've decided on what you want to track, the next step is setting up the goals in analytics. I can't tell you how many analytics accounts I have audited. They've spent a lot of money on traffic. They're getting a lot of traffic to their website. They've spent a lot of money on SEO, etc., and they haven't set up goals in analytics. It's such a wasted opportunity. So please don't make that mistake. You need to actually set up the goals so that it will track, because contrary to what you might think, by merely having an analytics account, it's not going to have created those goals for you. You do need to manually set that up. And to do that, if you're on a computer at the moment, you go to the admin section, and then in the view panel, you click on goals and you can create your goals there. I'd also highly recommend you create trackable links for all your marketing. And this will help in the classification of your marketing channels, so that when you do go in to analyze your reports, then the data is really useful and it can help you make some really good decisions. So once you've kind of set up your goals and you're creating trackable links in all your marketing, now you can start analyzing your reports. I'm going to go through some of the classic kind of reports that we run for our clients. So the first classic report that we run is what's called a traffic channels report. And this categorizes the traffic sources that somebody has come to your website. So a classic channel definition might be Google Organic. So that's what you rank for organically in SEO. Another one might be social. So they're all your social channels grouped by that channel. Direct might be another, in which somebody has typed in your URL into the website. Now, it's worth mentioning that direct often gets a little bit more credit than it should, because that's usually the classification that analytics gives when it doesn't really know what the classification is. So often I feel that this particular channel gets too much credit than it's really justified to get. So just know that going in when you have a look, as well as it will categorize your paid search campaigns, etc. So we go into our traffic channel report and we analyze those channels and the associated number of leads that those channels have generated, as well as the channel conversion rate. What do I mean by conversion rate? I mean the amount of people that have done the goal that we have specified before based on the number of people who have come to the website. So it's a percentage, and really we're looking for high converting traffic channels. So one application of this might be a client of mine, she pays for some directory listings, probably about 3 or 4 different directory listings. And each listing costs, I believe, around $600 for the year. So it's not a small amount of money. And she needs to determine whether it's worth pursuing beyond her first year of the test. So how do we determine that? We go into her Google Analytics account. We go to the traffic channels report, and we can navigate specifically to those specific listings and then see how many leads she has acquired from those specific directories. And so there were 2 that were generating a lot of leads and therefore well worth the $600 that she was spending per year to advertise there. And there were 2 others which one only generated 1 lead and the other one generated 0 leads. So when she gets that email from that particular directory asking her to renew her advertising spot, it's a very easy answer to give. Obviously, she will continue with the one who is generating her leads, and she'll politely decline for the one that is not generating her leads. So rather than conjecture, she's basing that on sort of fact information based on her analytics. And you can also have a look if those particular directories is producing quality traffic. So even for the 2 listings that didn't really generate her any leads, she can also see, well, did they spend a long time on my website? Or did they leave straight away? Did they bounce? That's what that metric is, somebody who leaves straight away. And therefore, that's a reflection of if it's quality traffic. So if somebody who leaves straight away is really not worth paying for. Analytics will also tell you the location of your leads, and that is in the location report. And you can see that where the leads are coming from based on country and certain regions and even cities. And this is really helpful to determine from an ongoing marketing perspective, where are your leads coming from? Who's really interested in your product? And maybe you can pursue some form of advertising there, because that's what analytics is telling you. That's where the leads are coming from. And therefore, it's worth sort of digging deeper into that area. The next thing we'd like to do is we can see how our visitors are engaging with our website, because yes, it's not all about leads and sales. So let's have a look at some engagement metrics, because generally speaking, the people who spend more time on a website and look at more pages, generally speaking, are more likely to become a customer. So one thing we really can't ignore is mobile. Google have done a number of studies whereby they've said that Google mobile internet usage and mobile internet searches has finally surpassed desktop, which is a pretty amazing milestone, if you ask me. It was always on the cards to come, but it's pretty amazing to know that we're there right now. So you can't ignore the mobile experience for people. So it's worth having a look at just how much traffic you are getting from a mobile device. And if you are getting a lot of traffic, then it's worth really having, going to your mobile and doing a search on your website and trying to engage with your website to see what it's like for other people, because you want to provide a good mobile experience for people. And it's also worth, so continuing on with our engagement metrics, it's worth having a look for all the traffic sources, how people are behaving on the site. Are they leaving straight away? How many pages are they viewing? And how long are they spending? Because these are really good engagement metrics that you can have a look at. Now, analytics is obviously really helpful in determining information about the actual leads that we're getting. So you can determine if you're, let's say, running an e-commerce shop, how many people have abandoned their shopping cart. This is probably the lowest hanging fruit for many, many people, whereby you can see people who've added something to their shopping cart and for whatever reason, they didn't end up purchasing. The best way to view this is by creating what's called a funnel when you create your goal. And a funnel is essentially saying to analytics, yes, this is my goal. I want people to land on the payment confirmation page, but these are the steps that need to be satisfied before. And you want to set this up because then you can run what's called a funnel visualization report in analytics to see just how many people started at the funnel and at various points, where did they fall off. But the important information is, yes, to know that if they did fall off, but really the gold information is where did they go? Did they leave your website or did they go and visit another page? And this really holds some valuable insights as to perhaps there's information missing on your sales page, for example, about delivery or shipping and shipping and delivery, etc., as well as the terms and conditions. So maybe it's worth addressing those concerns before somebody adds something to their shopping cart, because you want a seamless process for people to go through for them to purchase. You don't want them leaving that funnel. So that funnel visualization report is really, really helpful. You can also run goal reports in the conversions section in Analytics, and this will tell you just how many goals have been achieved, as well as the traffic sources that have generated those leads. So really, really valuable information that you can provide in that whole conversion section within Google Analytics. Now, we live in a different world, I feel, where it's multi-device and it's multi-platformed. I know myself as a user, I might be looking in my Facebook newsfeed and I'll see an ad and I'll click on the ad and I'll go to someone's website, and for whatever reason, I might be waiting in the line at a supermarket and I'm not quite ready to do what they want me to do. So I leave. And then when I get home on my desktop, I'll Google search them and I'll sort of register for whatever I was interested for. So that, these days people are on multi-device, and, a conversion event can happen over quite a considerable amount of time. So this is the concept of what's called assisted conversions. And it's really important to know because this is the way things are done right now. So Google Analytics is what's called a last click attribution. What was the last traffic source that led someone to ultimately convert? It doesn't factor in those multi-touch points. And this is where the assisted conversions report can come in really handy. It's like the concept of basketball, where the person who's shooting the hoop gets all the credit for the basket. But what about the person that threw him or her the ball that ultimately got them that basket? So the assisted conversion report factors those assists in, and you have a assisted conversion amount for traffic sources as well as the value, which calculates the people or the traffic sources that were part of the conversion path, but were not the final component of the path. And we've got some really valuable information from this assisted conversions path. Then this is especially relevant for products or services where there is a long lead time and there is a long time before people actually do decide to go ahead and purchase. So it's definitely worth navigating to your assisted conversion report and have a look at just how many touch points are required before someone ultimately does make a purchase. In that section as well, you can also have a look at the top conversion paths, which is another report just below it. And that will also tell you the top channel paths that ultimately led to someone converting. And you might be amazed by just how many touch points were involved in a conversion actually taking place, because it's not that representative to look at all the standard reports with analytics being a last click attribution, because really the reality these days is just not how things happen. Another thing you might want to look at is, how did you bring your visitors back? We all know, and most businesses know, that your best customers are the ones who have bought from you before. So it's so important to be trying to get your past customers or your past website visitors back to your website. And it's worth having a look at your new versus returning report, which splits up the traffic between a new visitor versus a returning visitor. And importantly, you want to see how the goals are tracking for each of those different types of users. And you most likely will see that a returning visitor will convert much, much higher than a new visitor. And it's no surprise. So this obviously tells us the need for remarketing, for example, because analytics is telling us just how valuable a returning visitor is. So we can sort of try and help people along to get people back and ultimately do what we would like them to do, as bad as that sounds. But hopefully you're providing a good product or service that you know is in the best interest for them. That's what we like to think. I mentioned before about creating trackable links and the importance of that. And it's best explained with an example. So we have a client who, she has a really big database and she emails her database, and her database has all her customers on there, weekly specials. So she sells products that people buy ongoing. And so she has these weekly specials. So we can see in her traffic channels how email converts for her. And email as a traffic channel only accounts for 1% of all her traffic, but it converts at 10%. So it's a really valuable traffic source for her. And she knows this. But we wanted to delve a little bit deeper. We wanted to really drill down into the specific emails that might be working for her. So we created trackable links within her emails to categorize the different offers that she's running. So she might run an offer for free delivery versus the top selling products, et cetera, without revealing too much sensitive information about this client. So we created these trackable links, and then we can have a look in analytics to see which specific emails are driving the highest revenue as well as the highest conversion rates. So had we not done this, we would just see that email has generated revenue, which we know. But now we can see actually what are the products that people are really interested in that we can offer again, as well as what products are people not interested in, and then we won't offer those ones again. So we drill down a little bit more and get really more valuable information that is certainly invaluable for this particular customer. So you might also try and play around with segments. And we love segments in analytics because it really enables you to slice and dice your account. So, and by slice and dice your account, I mean sort of pull out a certain group of people and to see how they behave. So one great segment that we like to do is what we call our whales. And our whales are our best customers, the people who spend the most. So you can create a segment for such people by their revenue per user being greater than a certain amount. And obviously, this amount really depends on your business and the product that you're selling. And then you can have a look at which traffic sources are generating such whales, as well as the actual physical location of these people. And then hopefully you can create more targeted, perhaps ads for these people or various other kind of marketing material. You can also have a look at the age and gender of your best customers, so that maybe if you're running Facebook ads, you know exactly which age and demographic of people you want to target, as well as the specific products that such people buy. And then maybe in your email marketing that we mentioned before, you would offer those specific products because you know that the people who spend the most buy those specific products. Another kind of segment you might have a look at are your engaged users, and then see the pages that your engaged users are looking at, as well as where they're specifically coming from. With social media being such an important component to everyone's marketing, you can create a segment for social media to see the e-commerce activity, for example, of your social media traffic, as well as the specific products that have been purchased by just the social media group of people. And then when you continue to run maybe some social media ads, you know exactly the products you want to show them, as well as where they're located. And the last segment that we often use is a segment based on the time spent on your website. And this is really to compare the difference in behavior of such people. So we might create an audience of people who have spent more than 1 minute on the website. And because we want to see at the difference of conversion rate of such people, and also which traffic sources are generating such people. And this is really valuable if you're running AdWords, for example, and more specifically doing remarketing on AdWords, because you can create an audience of these people in Google Analytics that will link it up to your AdWords account, so that you're only remarketing to people who have spent a certain amount of time on your website. Because if you think about it, if somebody bounces from your website, they're probably not worth showing a remarketing ad to. And this is the way that you can do such remarketing within Google Analytics. And it's very, very powerful. And the last thing I want to mention is a really good thing to do that you can do is improve the website load speed. And Google Analytics has a whole section on site speed. So you can see exactly the various load time of certain pages. And you might find that there are just a handful of pages that are really slowing things down for people. And maybe they just need some images compressed, or you could possibly change your hosting provider to try and improve the overall website speed, because that is one of the quickest ways that you can improve conversions for your website, just by merely improving the load speed. So I hope you found this episode helpful, and I hope you get as excited about Google Analytics as I do. For more information on this particular episode, you can go to talkingwebmarketing.com and navigate to this specific episode. And if you really enjoyed this episode, I'd love for you to leave a review on iTunes, as well as subscribe to this podcast so you never, ever miss an episode. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you next episode. You have been listening to the Talking Web Marketing podcast. For more information or resources on today's episode, head on over to talkingwebmarketing.com.